Hello everyone, Jeff with the Green Review. It does not matter if your yard is new or old, planting is the most important step. A landscape plan is not just about plants. It will also cover all of the existing and future uses for the property. A good plan will take into account the mature size of the plants to make sure they will fit into the landscape, and that especially for that location. Having a plan will allow you to break the design into single tasks that you can tackle without having to install the whole yard all at once. Sometimes the idea of landscaping the whole yard and its many nooks and crannies can seem overwhelming. You don't have to do the plan yourself. You can hire a landscape architect or landscape designer, and in the future the plan can be revised as family needs change. It'll be easier to make changes to the landscape knowing the new parts fit in within the plan. Landscape designers often only have training in horticulture and work for plant nurseries. They can help you design the planting areas if no other landscape work needs to be done, such as grading or building. They will usually only design into the plan what they have in stock at the nursery. The nursery may offer a discount on this plan or the plants if they're allowed to do some of the installation. The do-it-yourself homeowner often needs help picking out the proper plants. Being able to show the nursery people the area you're buying the plants for will help them pick out the right plants. So buy a photo album and take before pictures of different spots in each season throughout the property. Photos help you track the improvements and feel good about your progress. Place measurements of the areas in your photo album on little 3x5 note cards, and you'll be able to buy the properly sized plant or garden ornament when you see one. Keep track of where the sun and shade hit each area of the yard throughout the year, and place magazine articles and photos of other people's plants and other people's yards in the garden areas of your photo album. When you're out plant shopping, take the photo album along and either pick one area to work on or pick out one or two plants that are on sale and decide which area they fit into the best. The store people will be able to help you better if you have those measurements and notes handy in your album. You can use an online photo album for storing your photos, but it's sometimes hard to see the screen on a phone or a tablet when you're outdoors, and a lot of times you won't have the measurements available. So it really does help to have these things physically in a photo album. Today's landscape could be based on many historical precedents. You can have a butterfly garden, a colonial garden, a flower color garden, such as pink or yellow. You can have a formal garden, a fragrance garden, an informal garden, Japanese garden, moon garden, native garden, perennial garden, prairie garden, rose garden, rock garden, secret garden, Shakespeare garden, tea garden, water garden, vegetable garden, Victorian garden, Zen garden. Any more letters in the alphabet? You can have a lot of different choices, and you can mix them. You don't have to have just one style. You can mix and match. So what's this mean to me? Just because you're doing it yourself doesn't mean you can't get some advice. Local garden centers often employ landscape designers, certified nursery professionals, or horticulturalists that can help with your design. Having good documentation of your landscape will help them be able to help you better. Landscape design analysis is done in two parts. The first step before you can choose any plants is to inventory the environmental conditions and potential uses for your landscape. Buildings, trees, and topography changes will create different microclimates. The shady northern side of a house will be cooler because the sun can't warm it up like it does the sunny west and south sides. You might have different soil types or differences in soil moisture in different parts of the landscape. Your landscape is located in a regional climate that might have very different weather conditions in different seasons. You will need to choose plants that can grow not only in the overall climate conditions of your region, but also the microclimate conditions in the different places in your yard. A wide variety of plants for each location is often prettier and also means fewer problems. Remember, plants in the same family often develop the same insect and disease problems. A wider variety of plants helps slow the spread of these problems. Plants that are native to the local area or that grow in similar climatic conditions will do better overall. All the areas in your landscape will create different thrive conditions for plants. It will be up to you or your landscape designer to determine the right plant for the right place. The second equally important part of the analysis is to determine what activities and uses are going to take place in the landscape. Who will be using the landscape and what they will be doing there? Are pets going to be in the landscape? Do these activities need plants or hardscapes like patios and decks? Is there a need for a shed or storage areas? What future plans need to be taken into account? Who will be doing the maintenance, the homeowner or a hired company? Are there any off-site views that are to be highlighted or hidden? Activities change as people change. Swing sets and sandboxes get outgrown and are replaced by other activities. So what's this mean to me? An analysis of the site's environmental conditions may seem unnecessary, but it is a very important step. Knowing the conditions will help you place your plants in the proper thrive range conditions. Deciding on present and future activity areas will prevent future conflicts as the plants grow. Landscape plans have two parts. First, there's a list of needs, wants, and desires developed from the two-part analysis step. This list includes answers to the questions of what kind of activities are planned for in the landscape. It will outline the steps needed to accomplish the tasks. For a new landscape, the steps may include rough grading, large tree planting, patio installation, irrigation installation, final grading, installing the lawn, and so on. Each part of the plan will include an estimated cost and length of time needed to accomplish it. The second part of the plan is the drawings. Multiple drawings may be created, starting with the analysis drawings and ending with a final plan. Landscape drawings start with a plat of survey that has accurate measurements of the property lines and the locations of all hard surfaces within the property. Added to the plat will be the location of all utilities and easements, the location of all doors and windows on all the structures, and the location of any existing plants. Next, site analysis items are added, such as drainage patterns, soil types, sun and shade patterns, views, and wind direction. Overlaid on top of the analysis drawings are the potential use areas. Landscape architects divide the landscape into public viewing areas, living areas, and service areas. The public area is centered on the front entry area, which is considered the focal point that the landscaping should draw attention to. The living areas include all areas that adults, children, and pets would use. Service areas include clotheslines, compost piles, garbage cans, sheds, and storage of boats and RVs. Draw arrows to and from the related items, such as the dog area and the back door, the kitchen and the grill, or the vegetable garden and the water spigot. Use bigger arrows or color codes for important relationships. Do several versions, trying each activity area in a variety of locations. Take into account which areas should be screened from view, such as the outdoor garbage cans or bad views off-site. What's this mean to me? Don't be too afraid to do dozens of overlay drawings. Move activity areas to new locations, mix things up, and try again. Paper and planning are much cheaper than moving landscaping or realizing the smelly garbage cans are too close to the grill. The final overall landscape drawings will incorporate the desired uses as influenced by the site analysis. Final landscape drawings may include flower bed planting plans, deck or patio detail drawings, grading plans, irrigation plans, and other information that helps the landscape contractor know what the landscape architect wants. What's this mean to me? One of the nice things about landscape drawings is how flexible they can be. Sure, everything seems to be planned out to the square foot, but if you're looking out the kitchen window and a tree is being placed in the way of the best view, it can be moved a few feet in any direction without hurting anything. Landscape drawings are designed to be accurate, but most of the parts aren't cast in concrete. Move a tree now so it doesn't grow for 20 years and then have to be cut down. A lot of science goes into all of this, but so does a lot of art. To the non-artist, artworks are often hard to define. We know what we like, but we may not be able to define why we like it. Good landscape art depends on the same principles as other art. Good landscape design, like other art, uses accents and focal points, visual balance, color harmony, form, proportion, repetition, scale, and texture. These basic parts of design are created in the landscape using arbors, benches, decks, fences, flower beds, gazebos, hedges, lawns, shade trees, specimen plants, statues, walks, and water features. Landscaping around homes is often used to make the home look like it belongs in that landscape. The landscape can be considered a set of outdoor rooms. Plants are used to focus attention on important locations like the front door and to distract attention from awkward-looking parts of the house. Is this an attractive landscape? As a piece of visual art, does it have visual accents? How are the accents created? Is it through color or through differences in visual texture? Compare big leaves versus thin leaves. What are the focal points? What do your eyes stop and linger to look at? How is visual balance created? Is it through reflections or horizontal leaves of the water lilies contrasting with the vertical white and green leaves of the sweet flag chorus? Blue color in the upper right and lower left? Yellow-green in the upper left and the lower right? Where do you see color harmony at work? Do you like the contrasting leaf shapes, forms, and textures? Does the same landscape work in black and white? Just using visual textures, forms, and repetitions and no color. Does that work? What's this mean to me? Don't like the look of that landscape? That's fine. It's art, and you don't have to like it. What do you like? Take pictures of what you like. Save pictures from magazines and off the internet of landscapes and individual plants that you do like. Do you like yellow or purple flowers? Big leaf plants or small leaf plants? It doesn't matter if anyone else likes that combination or not. If you do, then use it in your landscape design. As you design your own landscape and flower beds, take art design principles to heart and think about them as you purchase your plants and as you install them. Take photos of your landscape, then look at the plant catalogs in the winter and real plants in the garden centers in the summer to find plants that have contrasting and harmonizing colors and textures to fit into your landscape. So what is the timing of this new landscape? Once the plant is finalized, what goes in the ground first? If there's bare soil, then the lawn and mulch for the beds need to go in to prevent erosion. But if large trees requiring machinery are going in, then they should go in before the grass. Trees take longer to grow, so if the landscape needs to be phased in, they go in first to get started. After that, there may be restrictions from homeowners associations that require the front landscaping goes in before anything else. Finally, prioritize the rest based on the needs of the family. Maybe vegetables go in. Maybe the hedge that screens the bad view goes in next. What's this mean to me? Once your landscape plan is done, you can phase it in, knowing that the pieces will fit together into a cohesive whole. So let's talk about the front yard and foundation landscaping. The first landscape plantings around homes in the American colonies were almost entirely composed of food, herb, and medicinal plants, with occasional boxwood hedges to separate the garden areas. It requires about half an acre per person to grow your own fruits and vegetables. Add another half an acre per person if you want to grow your own grains, such as wheat and corn. And it also takes another acre per person to produce your own eggs, meat, and milk. That's a lot of land. And you can see why there wasn't a lot of gardening time left for raising flowers and shrubs, just for their visual beauty. In the past, American homes were often built with tall, exposed foundations that people wanted to cover, so foundation plants were planted to hide the exposed brick and concrete. Today, most homes don't have that problem, and so there is less of a need to cover the whole front of the house with an evergreen hedge or a row of spireas. Also in the past, the only plant varieties available grew too tall and wide for the space allowed around the foundation and in the front yard. They often grew up to cover the windows and maybe even past the eaves. The plants were often chopped in half, and an effort was made to maintain them below the front window height. The plants often turned into ugly hedges that needed to be screened themselves. Newer dwarf versions of many plants are now available that don't grow too tall and don't need to be butchered to maintain them at an appropriate height. Almost every rural, suburban, and urban home has a shade tree in the front. It may be called the street tree and may be planted in the common right-of-way, but it gives shade to the home and the landscape. An ornamental flowering tree may be planted on the front corner of the house to help visually tie the house to the landscape. Let's move around to the side yard. Flower beds began appearing in the late 1800s as more people had free time and less need for a vegetable garden. Printed gardening catalogs and magazines appeared at this time, and they were offering landscape gardeners the opportunity to see what others were doing, and which new plants were available. Side yards often have utilities such as gas meters and air conditioning units, so the side yards are rarely used. So why are we planting them in grass that needs to be mowed? Why not plant the side yard entirely in a cutting garden of perennial flowers that can be cut and brought indoors and for use in a vase? As a bare minimum, utilities should be placed into their own bed out of the lawn so it can be mulched with weed barrier and gravel for an even lower maintenance. This side yard was transformed from an empty space into a fruit garden. 3 apple trees are trained to grow on the fence, cucumbers and cantaloupes are on the trellises, pumpkins, watermelons, strawberries, and zucchini are on the ground. What's this mean to me? There's an old saying that doctors bury their mistakes while architects plant ivy. There are often parts of the house and the utilities that don't look pretty and need landscaping to hide them. Maintenance of landscape areas that are rarely used or not usually visible can be lowered if converted from lawns to perennial flower beds. The beds then can supply cut flowers for indoor use. In the backyard, foundation plantings are often unnecessary. Plant any flowers in beds farther out from the house so they can be seen from indoor rooms. Water gardens should be installed near the house and patio so that the sounds they make can be enjoyed. If they're planted out in the far corner of the yard, they're not as visible and it's harder to get water to them. And if they're in a low spot, they could flood in a heavy rain and all the fish might swim away. Plus the surrounding lawn chemicals could wash in. Vegetable gardens need to be in the sunniest place possible. Don't place it too far from the house. That's where watering is coming from, so if you go too far, then the watering becomes a chore. As garden styles continue to recycle, many gardeners are going back to having vegetable plants somewhere in the landscape. Even if it's not in the formal vegetable garden, other gardeners are ripping out their lawns to install vegetable gardens in both the front and backyards. Many designers consider the front yard the public area and the backyard the private area, but you don't need to be constrained by this idea. More and more people are reclaiming the front yard for more than just public viewing by adding small patios and vegetable gardens. Some garden vegetables are attractive. Cabbage, chard, kale, and lettuce have pretty leaves. Okra and peas have pretty flowers. Eggplant, peppers, and tomatoes have many colors of attractive fruit. Some landscape plants have edible plant parts, such as the flowers on nasturtium and pansies. Many herbs have attractive leaves that are also fragrant. Not all landscapes are flat. Existing slopes and trees can be a hassle or an enhancement to the landscape and need to be considered during the design process. Very often, vacant lots are sold with large existing trees in locations that make it very difficult to build. Trees may need to be cut down, or they may have underground utilities cut through their root systems, or have paving installed over the roots. Even worse is when there are existing trees, but the new landscape design requires changes to the slopes that will either cover the root system or cut it away. If soil can be added over an existing root system, a tree well system can be installed. Pipes are laid out like spokes radiating out from the tree trunk on the existing soil level. Large rock gravel is installed between the pipes, and this allows for air circulation to the existing root system when it's covered in more than a few inches of soil. No soil should be touching the tree trunk. A stone or timber wall can be built to keep the soil away from the tree trunk. If paving needs to be installed over the tree roots, it's best to have it installed on a raised gravel base that allows for air exchange to the roots. Paving should not be used within several feet of the tree trunk to keep vehicles and any resurfacing machines away. Although grass is often used as an inexpensive erosion control, steep slopes are difficult to mow and maintain. Slopes are easier to maintain in the long run with other plants. Terraces can be created and held in place with boulders, man-made stones, or timbers. Terraces may be small or large enough to create more usable space for activities. What's this mean to me? Just because people can build on a wooded floodplain, hilly site, or in a swamp doesn't mean it's a good idea. Why does a large mature tree suddenly blow over in a storm after it had tolerated so many storms in the past? Some trees are incredibly strong and last many years beyond what other trees can handle, but past problems will eventually add up to disaster. If we have to be part detective, part historian, and part coroner to come up with an answer. Look at what this oak endured in the past. It was in place long before the home was built. It endured roots damaged by streets and city sidewalk construction. It endured construction of the home foundation, the home's sidewalk and utilities being trenched in on the other side. All of the four sides of the tree incurred substantial root damage at some point in the past. Oak roots thrive in moist, loose, fluffy forest soil with lots of organic matter and lots of aeration in the surrounding soil. In this case, the soil was compacted and filled with grass roots that sucked a lot of the water and nutrients out of that soil. This is a slow death soil for mature oak trees. Roots of forest trees of the same species will graft themselves together. In a forest, this can help trees stand against winds. But when other trees are removed, there's no longer any strength. Damage to the tree roots during construction allows many infection points for disease organisms to get into the remaining trees. In this second photo, notice that a large limb facing the street was cut off, which did not heal and shows signs of decay. With all of these man-made injuries, the tree was in decline for many years. It had fewer leaves than a healthy oak. Because of so few roots, it could not fend off the carpenter ant invasion that devoured the wood in the trunk and in the roots. Honeybees moved into a hollow left from the cutting off of the branch. There were so few healthy roots that when the storm came and the tree blew over, it didn't even pull up much grass. It's a shame when a tree of this size is lost to the community. The homeowner was blessed when the tree didn't fall on the house. If you're planning a landscape in a new subdivision or building a house in a wooded area or just redoing an old tired landscape, start with an analysis of the existing stuff. Create a list of the activities desired and make a plan that can be installed all at once or as time and money permit. And this is Jeff with the Green Review. Thanks for